Have you ever wondered what powers the U.S. states actually hold? The answer lies in the heart of the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution. This crucial piece of legislation plays a key role in the balance of power within the United States, serving as the cornerstone of federalism. Federalism, in simple terms, refers to the division of power between the federal government and the individual states. The 10th Amendment states that any powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. In other words, if a power is not expressly given to the federal government in the Constitution, then it is assumed to belong to the states or the people. It's a fundamental principle that helps define the unique structure of our government. So what exactly is the 10th Amendment? Well, the 10th Amendment is one of the 10 amendments that make up the Bill of Rights, a critical addition to the United States Constitution. But what does it mean? In the simplest terms, the 10th Amendment is a definition of balance. It's the balancing act between the federal government and the states. It's a seesaw, a tightrope walk, a dance of powers. It's all about defining who gets to do what. But how does it do that? Essentially, this amendment means that the federal government has only those powers specifically granted by the Constitution, and nothing more. If the Constitution doesn't say the federal government can do something, then it can't do it. Everything else? It's up to the states or the people. Think of the Constitution as a list of chores for the federal government. If a task isn't on that list, then it's up to the states or the people to take care of it. That's the beauty of the 10th Amendment. It ensures that the federal government doesn't overstep its bounds. And it ensures those bounds are clearly defined in public record. A brilliant safeguard, a protective barrier for the states and the people. However, it's not always as cut and dried as it sounds. There's often debate about what powers are truly delegated to the federal government and which should be reserved for the states. It's a gray area that's led to many legal battles and Supreme Court cases over the years. So what's the bottom line? The 10th Amendment is about balance. It's about ensuring that power doesn't rest solely in the hands of the federal government. It's about giving power to the states and the people, rather than sequestering it. In essence, the 10th Amendment is all about balance of power. But why did the Founding Fathers feel the need for this amendment? To understand this, we must journey back to the late 18th century, when the United States was a fledgling nation, fresh from victory of the Revolutionary War. The Founding Fathers had to create a system of government that would prevent the tyranny they had just escaped. A federal form of government with too much power was a primary concern in crafting our nation. They designed a federal system where power was shared between the central government and the states. However, they were wary of the potential for federal overreach. After all, their recent struggle against British rule was still fresh in their minds. They had witnessed firsthand how a distant, centralized authority could trample on the rights of the people. The Founding Fathers were students of history. They knew that governments, left unchecked, had a tendency to accumulate power, often at the expense of individual liberties. They were determined to avoid this pitfall. They wanted a balance, a system where power would not be concentrated in any one entity, but rather distributed among various levels of government. This brings us to the 10th Amendment. It was a clear response to these concerns. Again, it reads, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people." The intention was clear: to limit the federal government, to prevent it from becoming too powerful. It was a way to ensure that states and individuals would retain significant control over their own affairs. It was a statement of the belief in the principle of localism, that the best government is the one closest to the people. The 10th Amendment, therefore, was yet another safeguard against the overreach of federal power. It was, and remains, an essential mechanism to maintain the balance of power and to protect the rights of states and individuals in the face of a potentially overbearing federal authority. Let's look at two intriguing legal cases that put the 10th Amendment to the test. The first case we'll explore is the 1995 United States Supreme Court case, United States v. Lopez. At the heart of this case was the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990, a federal law prohibiting the possession of firearms in school zones. Alfonso Lopez, a Texas high school student, was charged under this law. However, Lopez's defense argued that the federal government overstepped its boundaries and infringed upon the state's rights to regulate education, a power reserved by the 10th Amendment. The Supreme Court agreed, marking a significant victory for states' rights. This case was a landmark decision as it was the first time in over half a century that the court limited the power of Congress under the Commerce Clause, reinforcing the importance of the 10th Amendment. The second case is the 2012 National Federation of Independent Business v. Sebelius. This case challenged the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act, often referred to as Obamacare. The court ruled that while Congress had the power to impose a tax penalty on individuals who did not purchase health insurance, it did not have the authority to force states to expand Medicaid, once again upholding the 10th Amendment's protection of states' rights. In both cases, the 10th Amendment was used to guard the sovereignty of the states against federal overreach. These legal battles showcase how the amendment serves as a shield, preserving the balance of power between the states and the federal government. They demonstrate that the 10th Amendment isn't just a historical artifact, but a vital part of our constitutional framework that continues to shape our nation's laws and policies. These cases highlight the ongoing relevance and importance of the 10th Amendment in today's legal landscape. Before we wrap up, let's look at one more influential case, Prince versus United States, which took place in 1997. This case directly challenged the constitutionality of a provision of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, part of the broader Gun Control Act of 1968. This act mandated that local chief law enforcement officers perform background checks on prospective handgun purchasers within 5 days of an attempted purchase. Jay Prince, a sheriff in Montana, and Richard Mack, a sheriff in Arizona, both filed separate actions claiming that this provision was unconstitutional. Their argument was that the federal government did not have the authority to compel state officers to execute federal laws. The Supreme Court agreed with Prince and Mack, ruling that this provision was indeed unconstitutional. The court cited the 10th Amendment, stating that the federal government could not force states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. This ruling yet again reaffirmed the principle of state sovereignty and placed clear limits on the extent of federal power. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share if you found this video informative. I'm Clump of Cells signing off for now. Stay informed and know your rights.